Hey, well, welcome back to another episode of Sportslandia. It's Brian Selleck and Ray Bradley coming at you. Thanks in part to the Next Professional Athlete platform.
Oh, you got it on.
We
Look at that.
officially hit summer season. NBA finals have wrapped up, the NHL finals have wrapped up, and we are in the dog days of baseball. Baseball and more baseball.
Yeah, yeah.
The NBA has already done their draft as well, and so is the NHL at this point. They are so quick after the finals. So it's really just baseball until training camps get together next month or later on this month for football. But Ray, I figured we don't want to waste any time. We should just jump right into it. Banner 18, finally in
Yeah.
your hands, you guys. The Boston Celtics closed out the finals against the Dallas Mavericks. I believe it was 4-1. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah, game five finish, which I think we both kind of were anticipating
yeah,
based on our predictions after the
we,
first
we
two.
all thought that Dallas was probably going to take at least a game somewhere, probably at home.
That game did scare me. That really, the way they took that scared me.
Even the first couple of games, there were some close moments where it's like, all right, like I could see Dallas making a move here or there, but then Boston would just get their momentum back and
Yeah.
separate themselves. But yeah, that 40-point drubbing or close to it for the Celtics made things look pretty bleak for a moment. But at that point, you're up 3-1. I feel like it's easier to just brush it off and be like, all right, let's regroup. We just have one more game to go here right now. That's not how we're going to end this series.
No, yeah, and it was kind of a nightmare start, especially that game. Like it was Derek Lively catching lobs, it was Derek Jones making threes, it was all the things and pieces and people you don't want getting confidence as a Celtics fan, getting some confidence early in that game. So it was a little scary that would roll over, and then you start thinking, okay, game five at home, you got to win that. If you don't win that, then you're game six on the road. Then you're now. Are we really going to start thinking about a game seven here, and anything could happen? So a little scary there, but yeah, they came home and absolutely took care of business and got to Banner 18. This team is just incredibly strong, and I love this team. Like I mean, the top six guys, especially, like I could have their entire documentaries that I would watch and love at this point. And they're all coming back. It seems like as well. They're re-signing everybody. They're going beyond the luxury tax, and
Even Porzingis.
even Porzingis. I believe everybody at this point is re-signed from this championship team, other than O'Shea Brissett, who may. Luke Cornett, Xavier Tillman, like all these guys. Cornett signed his 1 year deal. And there's some weird blah 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 gobbledygook in the explanation, and then at the end of it, it just said, "Oh yeah, so he has a trade clause. He has a no trade clause." Luke Cornett has 1 year minimum deal. Is like one of the three guys in the league. It's like LeBron James, Bradley Beal, and Luke Cornett. With no trade clauses. So I'm gonna have to look into that one a little more and figure out exactly how that transpired. But I found that hilarious. He's just like, "Oh man, if I'm coming back, there's no way they're getting rid of me. Like this is it. This is what it's about."
It's like I guess at that point you're protecting yourself because you're on a minimum contract, and I feel like there's so many times in an NBA trade market where it's just like,
Didn't do a trade, yeah.
yeah, it's just like we need minimum cash at least to balance out this trade. It's like, all right, well here you go. Let me just send this guy, and it's like he's not the most important person on the team, and you're more than willing to just ship him off to make the trade. Like,
Yes,
I,
yeah,
I, I see where he wants a little bit of protection because maybe that was something he dealt with in years past of maybe possibly being dealt at the deadline and
he had the leverage to pull it off. But more respect to him. He's coming off as a champ. He can do whatever he wants.
I think it shows maybe a little bit more respect for him more than
Yeah,
anything. If you look at it like that, it's like, hey, we value you as a piece. If
yeah.
that's what it takes to sign you, then yeah, all right, we'll do it.
And they like him as their backup big. Tillman's back as well to kind of just fill, hopefully, as much of the Al Horford shoes as you can. And I mean, Horford's back too. He didn't even retire, so we'll see what happens. And this
He
team,
should have. I don't mean to be rude. I feel like he really just should have.
he could have. They could back here, and then he could. Like they,
What was he averaging this year? Like, was he a big contributor, or was he more of a contributor when people were getting hurt and injured? Or like, I did not pay attention to the Celtics all that much. I watched
sure.
some of the
He,
finals with the Celtics and stuff.
it was
Like,
really important
is,
to the
is he
playoffs.
just the old guy on the team? Is he really contributing? Is he more of a culture guy at this point? What's going on?
He is. I
That was
mean,
the
they talk.
NBA championship that I worked for the last 14 years to get, and just gone off into the wind.
Well, that is the thing. I think a lot was said about Old Man Horford getting this championship, and we just gotta get one for him. Certainly by Jalen and Tatum, but he isn't like Peyton Manning with a broken neck on the Broncos here. Like he was still absolutely producing and able to switch and move on defense and do all the things they needed him to do. He's incredibly important, especially considering they didn't have Kristaps made most of the playoffs, and he just slotted in very easily as a starting caliber center who can. But I mean, the whole precipice of what they're building too is guys who can shoot, defend, and pass, and then kind of move with the ball a little bit if they need to as well. He fits all those boxes. So I can't say exactly what he was averaging. I imagine it was probably like 20 minutes, 10 points, 5 rebounds, like during the regular season or something. But
Respectable numbers.
even just if those are the numbers he's averaging in the playoffs, those become, because everything's dropping in the playoffs, those numbers become even more important. So, but yeah, he's a key piece. He's a key leader. And he's been around. I see a lot of the Ninja Turtle memes where it's Splinter with all the little baby turtles, and those are Tatum and all of them, and then they grow up, and now Al is Splinter, and all the turtles are big around him. So that's a great analogy for what Al Horford brings to the team. But I'm just glad he's back. One of my favorite Celtics of all time. Probably he's been with us forever. Even though he went and played with the Sixers for 2 seconds, I forgive him for that. Yeah, it was with the better team. Peyton Pritchard hitting a couple end of shot, where I think it was the end of the third quarter in Game 5. He nails. They knew it. They didn't know he's happening. There was a free throw. There's 3 seconds left. They bring Pritchard in, swing the ball over to him. He nails it over Luka.
I heard that they have a set for that for him specifically. When the game gets down to the final couple seconds, they bring in Pritchard because they know that he can make those types of shots.
He loves it. He did it twice in the finals. There's an entire highlight reel of him doing it this year. He did it like 8 or 9 times, like from distance almost every time. But yeah, that is specifically a play that they call for him, even though it seems like it's whatever, these little points you maybe can or can't get. But yeah, the way you finish and start corners is huge in the NBA, especially. And that was such a momentum builder. That was probably the loudest the Celtics arena was throughout the whole finals, because that was sort of the moment. He put him above 20, and there's a quarter to go, and you're kind of like, oh my God, it's happening. So, yeah, it was awesome to see. I've just been basking in all the celebrating, and I stayed on the coverage for the finals for another 6 hours after they won. All the parade stuff was pretty cool. It's been awesome. And the cool thing is, I think this team could do it again. The great thing was seeing Jalen win Finals MVP, which I believe he absolutely earned. He was the one in that in Game 3, which we didn't really talk about very much, was a close game. Came down to there was a section, I think in the third quarter, where the Celtics were up like 20, and then the Mavs cut that all the way down to like 7 or maybe even less than that. And the offense was stalling, and it was all going sideways and stuff. And Jalen was the guy who made a couple key, like, kind of mid-range buckets with a guy in his face who was able to stop the bleeding there and get us enough to keep going. So he was kind of important, as were most of all those guys. So I was excited to see them win one, and feels like they're set up to potentially do it again. I mean, we may talk about some of the second apron and salary stuff that's going to hinder them in the future, but at least for this next year, it's going to be the same team, and they are definitely going to be the favorites, because the whole thing with them was, well, they don't have the killer instinct. Can they actually finish the job? Now that they've done that, they might take another leap here. Like, their confidence really might start to go through the roofs, and things might start to get crazy. But we'll just see and hope everybody's healthy. But it's lined up to potentially continue to happen in the future.
I was going to say, with how much success that they had, could you see this sort of becoming maybe a mini dynasty that you have going? Because you've got Brown, you've got Tatum. I feel like you can kind of get that third person to where, the Warriors, once things started to click for them, it took them a few seasons to finally get going before they became the Warriors. Now, I know the Celtics have had some deep runs and done some good things, but they finally got over that hump. They won their title, and now you've got a young core that you feel like could probably go for another at least 5-6 years of being in that top contention.
100%. And the thing that scares me is the way that they've changed the CBA, and the second apron stuff. I don't know if we're gonna. I heard this on a Bill Simmons podcast the other day as well. I don't know if we're going to get too many more of these long-term dynasty runs with the way the salary cap and stuff is set up nowadays. It's just like even this Celtics team right now, like they've got huge extensions on Tatum and Brown. They've extended Derek White, Drew Holiday, and Kristaps, but that's okay for this year and the next year. When those extensions kick in, and they're going to end up paying like I think for the 26 Celtics, they're paying like $100 million for Tatum and Brown alone, and then it's like, can you keep those other guys? And then it's like, well, even if we do keep all these core guys, there just becomes a point where it's kind of unattainable price wise and tax wise and all this stuff. Like they're designing it in a way to not make it possible for the homegrown teams to kind of exist, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I feel like they're incentivizing the wrong. Like there's no incentive for the fact that the Celtics did this largely through just drafting well and a couple of good trade pieces here and there. Like the fact that Tatum and Brown are people who've been on the team for 7+ years together, and we nailed those picks, so now they're supermax guys. It's just weirdly like it doesn't totally make a lot of sense. So that's my word. Though I don't have as much worry with like if they were able to keep this team. Like it's like if in '99, 2000 the Spurs won the championship and then had to give huge money to Manu and Parker and David Robinson and Duncan, and it's like to a degree they did, but it's different. But if they had to do that right away, and then how can you even keep those salaries payable to a certain point? How do you get anybody else on that team? How do you afford to draft a Kawhi and pick up a Boris Diaw, a Danny Green? So I'm curious how. Unfortunately, it's not just a basketball question for me. It feels like mostly a financial question because this basketball team is great. If they stay together, they absolutely could contend for the next 5 years. Will they be able to stay together, especially now with the Celtics for sale? Almost like it. There's a little bit of stuff up in the air, and it's all the financial questions to me. It's not so much who's on the court, because who's on the court is great. How long can they pay them to stay on the same court together? It doesn't feel as possible as it maybe did in the 2000s.
Yeah.
So that's the word.
Well, now that they've won their championship, they've moved on into free agency, and the NBA draft has already happened, and there were some moves already done. I felt like pretty quickly for the NBA. Obviously, you had a bunch of re-signings with the Celtics. The Bulls finally made a trade for the first time in like 2 years, and they fucked it up. So
you don't like it? I thought you liked it.
I think it's good for Giddey to get a change so they traded Alex Caruso to the Thunder, but all they got back was Josh Giddey, a 2-time first-team all-defensive team player, back-to-back years. And you had offers on the tables for multiple first-round picks for him at the trade deadline, and you only get a player back to a team that has an ungodly amount of draft picks. You couldn't at least get another draft pick back in with that, because I felt like Caruso is an actual asset. Like, that's a great move for the Thunder. They get a defensive guy who's not afraid to attack the basket, and he can score a bucket. So it's like you've gained a lot of good notoriety, I guess, for the Thunder by bringing him in, because Giddey, for the most part, was a liability into the playoffs defensively, and he wasn't shooting the ball well. He has not necessarily been a great three-point shooter in his career either, but he wasn't doing the things that he's been doing the last couple of years. And so it's like I feel like he does need to change the scenery. He sort of fell out of favor in OKC. I still think he's a good player, and I'd like to see how he works with Patrick Williams now that he signed his $50 million extension with the Bulls or whatever it was. Yeah, I just like I see what they're trying to do. Like, they're trying to go a little bit younger. They let Drummond go. They're letting Caruso go in this trade and stuff like that. But the problem with the Bulls is they're always trying to retool, and they're too afraid to blow it up. And I don't feel like there's necessarily a true asset on that team where, like, you shouldn't trade them away, I guess. Like, I don't see that necessarily with anybody on that team now. And so, like, that's why I wanted the draft pick. Like, at least start accumulating some draft picks. You messed up by not trading DeRozan when you had the chance. Now he's leaving in free agency, and like you had all this time. You knew this was not a team that was going to win the finals, and you messed up the trade deadline, and then they make a trade at the beginning of the new season by just getting Josh Giddey. Which again, no disrespect to Josh Giddey, but it's like I feel like you should have gotten more than just him for Alex Caruso, and that's really my only beef with it.
I think I'm a lot more positive on it than you are. Like, I know this year for Giddey did a lot to destroy his value, I'll say, on and off the court. If you're talking about this trade last year, I think you would have been ecstatic. Like, he averaged.
I would be, but like you just said it, like his value was a bit diminished, and this is a team that I think valued Caruso in the beginning because I believe they were in on trade talks at the trade deadline for him.
Yeah, and it's like, well, so this game didn't make a lot of sense for Giddey to be on the Thunder this year because they had SGA, they had Jalen Williams, they don't need another ball handler.
Other players blossomed, yeah.
So it just immediately became a team that didn't really make sense for him. So I think that's a lot of. Plus, I think the off the court stuff sent him probably a little sideways for most of the year. So I think a lot of that can kind of be explained. To me, it is like, yes, you can trade Caruso for a couple first-round picks maybe, but it's like, well, that Josh Giddey is one of their really quality first-round picks that the Thunder actually made. He is basically like a 21-year-old guard forward. Like, you don't really get this level of talent at this point in their career too often. It has to be like kind of weird scenarios or other team issues like that doesn't fit with the Thunder. They're ready to make another jump. And Caruso doesn't make as much sense for you guys either, because like you said, he's like he's a finishing piece to a championship roster.
Yeah,
he's a 3-and-D guy. He's ready to compete right now. So the switch makes a lot of sense for both sides. It's wild that it is just a 1-for-1.
That's my only beef. I like Giddey. I like the move over to the Bulls, and I like Caruso going to the Thunder. My only beef was just you couldn't get anything else in that deal.
To be fair, a year ago, you're probably adding a pick to get Giddey in that deal. So, like,
knowing the Bulls, I'm surprised they didn't already add a pick in this deal. Anyways,
that's fair. But I think this is, like you said, all the guys who may be close to untradeable to all the Bulls, Giddey is like the top of the list. I feel like now.
Like, yes, like it was a good thing to get younger. Like, he's a solid player. A change of scenery is going to be good for him. I've got no
like
bad thoughts about him.
For a while. So, like, a lot of talent. Now he's just going to have a lot of time to create and do whatever he wants on the Bulls. It's just going to be him and Kobe White, and everybody else is probably
Zach LaVine. Nobody wants to trade for Zach LaVine.
That was some of the big stuff coming up in free agency. Is just like they're like trying to attach first round picks to LaVine for someone to take him, and everyone's like, no. We're good.
They offered, like, they wanted Chris Paul and somebody else from the Warriors for LaVine, and they said no, and then just let Chris Paul go. And it's just like, wow, the trade market is bad when they are literally about to trade a guy or drop a guy that you wanted to trade for. It's like, we don't want what he's doing.
No, it's a miracle he's still in those New Balance commercials, it feels like, because nobody else wants him on their team. So, yeah, that is a problem. Was I missing something? Has DeRozan signed somewhere else? I know it sounds like he's not coming back. Did he actually sign
I don't think he signed anywhere.
I thought, okay, I don't think so. I didn't think he did either, but I wanted to check in case. But yeah, he's not coming back either. He had some quote that he was like, the last straw was the Giddey trade. I'm leaving. It's like, what? What are you talking about? Look, he doesn't even
that's what DeRozan said?
Yeah. It was like, what? I didn't really understand what his thought process was there. It's like, that's the last straw. Not everything they've done for 3 years and not trying to be better. The Giddey thing where they finally make a good trade is okay.
Well, it takes the ball away from DeMar, and DeMar wants to be the guy most likely. That's probably what it is. But at the same time, you have LaVine on your team, and it's kind of Zach's thing too.
Yeah, I don't.
But no, DeMar has not signed. It's been rumored that he is interested in the Heat, or the Heat are at least interested in him, and he's open to a sign and trade to the Lakers to fit with LeBron. And LeBron, by the way, he signed back with the Lakers, and he got an extra $500,000 on his per year deal. So kudos to him.
He's really generous. He's taking less money to make the team better, I thought.
No.
Oh, that didn't.
No, he signed a 2-year supermax for $104 million.
And he got all the good press for a couple of days saying he would have taken less money
Yeah,
with the
that's all
free
he had to
agent at the
say.
time. It's just
You
the
know?
free agent didn't want to play for the crappy Lakers. So, yeah, other than the giant move of the Bulls, there was a couple other moves that happened.
I had to get that off my chest.
I mean, chronologically, that was the first big thing. That was like
That opened up everything. Like as soon as the new season started, it was like that. I feel like that was almost immediate.
yeah. Oh, I guess both teams. I think it makes a lot of sense for both teams. So the big sweepstakes this year was Paul George.
Yeah, after opting out, yeah.
I guess it's a sweepstakes. I mean, Paul George is hypothetically a good player. Didn't really do anything too much with the Clippers these last 4 years. Is that a health thing? I don't know. He had a bit of a good run in the playoffs. He's also disappeared in a couple playoff runs, so it's hard to tell.
I thought he was one of the more dependable guys this year for him. I know Kawhi missed a lot of games. I thought he was more dependable this year, like game wise, playing more games.
I think he was this year. It's been very off and on every year. They've never really been super competitive.
You can totally tell that we're NBA guys.
Totally. Well, I don't really bought it with this.
Yeah,
The
other team in LA.
It was interesting. But Kawhi just is not the same guy. He's not. They don't play enough. Neither of them played enough. So the combination was interesting to say the least. I will say closing down that Clippers era, the Paul George Kawhi. That is going to go down as one of the worst trades of all time. The Paul George SGA plus 10 picks trade. Boy, that looks a lot worse today. I mean, it looked bad in the moment. It looked really bad once SGA became an all-star. Got worse once he became a top 5 player. And now Paul George left and you got nothing. And boy, that's terrible. Just a terrible, terrible trade. So anyways, Paul George ended up choosing his team. And he's going to the 76ers to play with a guy who doesn't play in very many games. So I guess he just gets off on this shit. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you just from one team that has a guy like that to the next, it's fine.
Well, that's not me, man. What was I supposed to do? I want to say going from the Pacers to the Thunder to the Clippers now to the Sixers is a totally different level of fandom expectation, and he's going to be hearing it 1,000 times more than he ever was as any of those previous teams.
I mean, Indiana's pretty big on their basketball.
They were. That was a long time ago, and they sort of got close to maybe competing with some LeBron teams. It's been a while since he's even had that. I mean, OKC was a little bit there, but they were kind of past their prime, and I don't think people really go to Clippers games, so I don't think that was ever really a big pressure situation. But he is absolutely going to be, like, they're going to expect him to come in and not be Tobias Harris. And can he do that? Yes, he can. Can he sometimes beat Tobias Harris and disappear? Yeah, he kind of can. So, but again, it doesn't really matter. It's going to depend on the health of the main star there, Joel Embiid, and hypothetically, it's a good big three, I guess. But I don't have a lot of faith that those guys will be healthy after 2 rounds, Paul George or Joel. So I don't know. To me, the Sixers are very much what the Steelers were to the Patriots during their dynasty, where it was just like, oh, the Steelers. We're the Steelers. We have a rivalry with the Patriots. We're going to get them this year. And the Patriots are like, what are you guys talking about? We kill you every time. We're never worried about you. So, and that's how I feel. That's
like that Mad Men meme where it's just like, I don't even think about you.
Yeah, like that's what the Sixers have been for this entire era that they've been their thing, and the Celtics have been our thing. We pretty much beat them all the time. They've never beat us in a series. The one time Embiid beat us in the regular season, they gave him MVP. Okay, bud. We'll see what they can do. I'm not terrified of it because they're just never healthy. The other big move to the other big team in the East that should be the big threat was the final Villanova piece locking in, and Mikal Bridges going to the
Bridges, getting traded to the Knicks.
Couple picks, I think it was.
Boban, right? Boban or Bogdan or
yeah, it's like 2 firsts and one of them's one of Boban's or Bogdan's or something's. Bogdan would be more of a piece than a Boban, I guess. He's more of a commercial asset than
Yeah, like literally a commercial asset now at this point.
Yeah, which yeah, but yeah, I love this full mix. It's fun. It's a fun story. I like the fit. Obviously, like it all makes a lot of sense. It's a similar problem with the Sixers. The Tibbs level of play and the guys that they have with Angie, are they gonna be healthy in round 2 or 3? I just don't know.
Yeah.
The weight that they put on those guys, they've got a couple more guys now. Josh Hart doesn't have to play 50 minutes, although he is now their backup center, so it is not much better, really. So the problem with me there is it's just, I don't, maybe their business scoring is enough. I still don't know if they have enough scoring, considering their best scorer is Brunson, and the Celtics have Drew Holiday. So they're like, we are very much designed to stop that. And we can put one of our forwards on McHale, and their defense is great. I don't know if they have the offense to keep up. It's all injury based as well. I mean, we have the Kristaps thing as well. So, although I think we could beat them without. So, so these contenders getting better. They're certainly better. Will they be able to stay healthy and go the long run? Those guys haven't exactly shown that in the past, so we'll see. But they're certainly better. And the Nova thing is very fun. So I feel like.
Well, yeah, that's just a fun story to go along with. And then you get people like, oh, well, maybe Jay Wright will just come out of retirement and coach the Knicks now and just coach his old team to another title and be a fan favorite in New York for bringing another title back to him.
A little lighter touch might keep him healthier longer. might be what you need.
I found some other interesting news. Kemba Walker officially retired. Now, he hasn't been in the league for a little bit. But he's already found a new job. He's an assistant coach now on the Hornets bench. Like, quick turnaround for the guy.
Good for him.
Yeah, I mean, good for him. If he really wants to be doing X's and O's and things like that, yeah, I think that's a solid move for him.
It's a new Hornets organization, too, so it's like we might be out of the dark days of the horrible Jordan Charlotte Hornets. So, like, maybe they're going to start to be okay. I don't know. It's possible now. It feels like. So, yeah, might be turning in the right direction there. Yeah, he is obviously, I guess he's like a guy who might have his number retired there.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. At some point.
Well, he's making the closest they've had in a while. So I don't know if it's exactly there because they didn't really have that level of success, although for them that was a level of success at the time. So, but yeah, even this is cool. Good for him. Great Celtic at the time. The post knee injury, Kemba was difficult, but I'll always have his UConn step back shot imprinted in my brain for all eternity. Right. The famous March Madness shot. So that's enough for me.
Some other moves that happened. We talked, a little bit. Tatum getting extended. It seems like Klay Thompson moved on too. That was another one. He moved on to Dallas, and I guess they have somewhat of a similar role of just sitting in the corner and shooting threes. And I say that just because his game is a bit different than what it was when he was younger in Golden State, and he doesn't seem as effective anymore. So it's not like it's peak Klay Thompson. What do you think about the signing though for Dallas?
Yeah, this is like the opposite of the other two, where it's like I don't know if you needed more offense. You kind of needed more defense. I mean, it does. I guess if it's just like instead of Derek Jones Jr. over there not being guarded, now it's Klay Thompson hitting a couple threes. That is an improvement for them. I don't know that was really the problem. The problem was that Kyrie and Luka don't play defense, and we were using them as turnstiles. So I don't exactly know how that helps you there because guess what Klay is? He's another cone on the court. Like post Achilles, he's not moving. So that's Derek White's going right by that guy. So I think it does help them a little bit. You already have Kyrie and Luka. Obviously, they're handling the ball. They can kick it out to Klay. It doesn't offer as much defensively and stuff. And the rest of their team's probably going to be the same. If they replay the finals with Klay, do they win another game? I don't know.
I don't think this really necessarily elevates them in any way. And I think you're right. It becomes more of a defensive liability when he's on the court. But I guess if you're
they're going to get hunted.
Well, yeah. My thought maybe he signed a decent deal, so you pull him off the bench when you need a bunch of scoring in a short amount of time. Hey, this is a guy who can get hot and if we can get him in there, get some
Yes.
good looks, maybe.
I think the
But
Ray Allen thing mentioned with the Heat, but it's like he
you're
was
talking
in
about
a Ray
different
Allen with the Heat.
stratosphere as a player.
Yeah, well, he was even later in his career, and he was only asked to shoot like 5-6 times a game in the corner. Like he
Yeah.
wasn't being paid $20 million to be your third best player. So,
Yeah.
and he obviously had defensive problems at that age too. But he wasn't out there long enough for it to really become a huge issue. As long as he's hitting his threes, you're kind of in a plus margin there. Clay's gonna play a lot for this team, and it completely depends on I guess how much you think he has left. Maybe they'll score a little bit more, but I feel like they're going to be worse defensively. So I don't
think they're kind of going with the we'll just outshoot and outscore everybody. We'll just try to keep churning it out like that. It's not necessarily a winning mentality or a way to win a title or anything like that. But
the efficient offense can carry it a long ways. I mean, that's kind of the Denver model, is just be ultra efficient offensively and pretty good on defense for the most part. But even then, when they won it all, they had Bruce Brown and KCP and Aaron Gordon, and Jokic is still a big guy. He's not a slouch down there.
Yeah.
So I struggle to think of even the Celtics. Like this year's team was shooting threes and offensive efficiency stuff was good, but they were built on their defense pretty much entirely. So that's what would get them going, and that's when they'd get into their stagnant offenses when they had to just play half court and weren't able to pick it up and run fast breaks. So I don't know. The age of we just shoot a bunch and make all our threes and we win. It's been a while since we've actually had one of those who hasn't won plus defense. I mean, maybe the Warriors beating the Celtics was a little bit more offensive, but I don't know. It's better than Derek Jones being over there, but you're going to have your own problems now too, because Clay's not catching lobs and he's not going to defend even as well as Derek Jones, I wouldn't say. So,
well, another team in the division kind of went and got more of a defensive guy in the middle, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're getting Hartenstein to grab some rebounds for them and whatnot. You already seem upset about this.
This is a team that got way better this offseason.
Right.
They just so the perfect guy to just put next to SGA and 3 and D. And then they got Hartenstein, who I thought was maybe the best Nick. He got so many fucking rebounds. He almost had a triple double a couple times because he had so many assists as well. This guy was just a monster on the boards. And why did this Thunder lose? Because they could not. They lost 4 rebounds in a row in that game versus Dallas, and PJ Washington made a bunch of shots. They literally improved the 2 spots they needed the most, and it makes a lot of sense. I'm just mad because what the hell? This is perfect for them. I think this is the biggest addition and improvement offseason wise, way more than the Knicks or the Sixers, I feel like.
And what did we talk about during their playoff run and leading up to it? It's this is a very young team. I think you bring in Caruso, he's an older guy. Hartenstein, what'd you say, Hartenstein? Hartenstein,
one of those, yeah.
He's Steen, thank you. Anyways.
Frankenstein joke. Yeah.
Frankenstein. But anyways, they bring him in. He's a little bit older than those guys are, so it's this is a good piece to bring in and help a group that was young, and I think this. Do you think that makes them the leader then in the West? Or do you still think that's the Nuggets? You got the Timberwolves up there now as well. I don't think necessarily Dallas was the best team in the West, even though they represented the West in the finals.
It was all matchups at that point, right?
Yeah.
The Timberwolves were designed to beat the Nuggets. And they actually did. The problem is they had to play another round in the West. And it wasn't against the Nuggets. It was against Luka, and they weren't really built to beat Luka, or maybe they had an emotional high and were over it. I kind of think this does put the Thunder number 1 for me. I would have had the Nuggets number 1, but they lost KCP to the Magic, and they're not getting people. They're just losing pieces to that championship team. It feels like they lost Bruce Brown last offseason for not that much money, and I didn't love it. They lost KCP this offseason for not that much money, and I didn't love it. So, and they keep saying Christian Braun and Peyton Watson are going to do it for us, but Michael Malone doesn't really want to play them that much all the time because he wants to just play veterans who he knows are good. the classic coach in the playoffs thing. So I worry a little bit about them, even with Jokic. And then, so I do kind of think it's like OKC right up there, and then probably like Timberwolves, Dallas, Denver, all right there. But it's all just depending on who's matched up with who at that point. And because like I think Denver would have killed Dallas if they'd been there, but then and ironically Minnesota kills Denver. It's like a rock paper scissors kind of thing with a lot of those teams in the West. It feels like, but OKC was a team that felt like had a lot of strengths and had one very obvious weakness, which was, I mean, the redundancy of Giddey, and then they just had no other size, right? They struggled rebounding. Feels like they've directly addressed both of those things very well, and they still have a lot of young players, and they can still make some crazy move at the deadline with all their stupid picks if they want to. So, and they have guys who are still ascending, like Jalen Williams, and who knows where SGA can even go from here. So it feels like the arrow is still pointing up there, whereas like Denver's kind of having money problems keeping their roster together. Dallas got Clay. Maybe that's better. It's hard to really know. And even Minnesota, it's like Anthony Edwards is like, was he 22 this playoff run? Like, he's going to get a lot better. He kind of ran out of energy last year in the playoffs. If they're able to find some more scoring or move Cat at some point in this regular season and find something else, they just need a little bit more scoring, it feels like, because they have the defense. So they're right there as well, it feels like. But they haven't had a big splash move yet or anything quite yet. So I do think OKC is right up there, though. And they've just improved. I just love the moves that they made. It's really annoying.
Seem to be doing all right. Any other free agency stuff you want to chat about?
I don't think so. I kind of mentioned the KCP or the Magic thing. The Magic are the ones who I kind of wanted Paul George to go to. I think that would have made because the Magic are another kind of like the Timberwolves. They have fantastic defensive players all around. They just need a little more scoring. And a guy like a Paul George, or even a Klay Thompson, would have actually given them that scoring, and they would have been able to cover up for Klay's defensively. And Paul George can still do stuff defensively. So I was kind of more interested in those options for those guys, just because I think Orlando, as a Celtics fan, they kind of scare me because they defensively have a lot of things to throw at us. I just think they don't have enough scoring, and at the moment, thankfully, they still don't. But if they were able to get like some chunk scorers in there, I think it would start to get scary pretty quick. Or if Paolo can develop a jumper, like they still have a lot of people ascending as well. But yeah, defensively they're there, but they just need more offense. It's a lot of stuff like that right now in the NBA. It feels like a lot of teams either have one or the other, and they're just kind of trying to even that out a little bit more. Yeah, there wasn't too many other major things I thought from free agency at the moment. I think we're still waiting on a couple things, but I think OKC so far is one free agency, however far that gets you.
The other thing that happened already was the NBA draft. Now, people have been saying this is probably one of the weaker drafts that we've seen in years past. A lot of international guys getting picked early, which I know for most people, you don't really know. You didn't watch them play college basketball, so usually you kind of pick up on a name here or there, and you're getting a lot of casual basketball fans who have no idea who some of these international guys are that are coming over. Like last year, you knew Victor Wembanyama because that's everybody was talking about him. You know, so it's just like, oh, I know that name. Okay, I've seen him play because they were talking about him like 2 years prior already. And this year just felt very different, but you and I were kind of keeping tabs on the draft. I know you were paying attention to what Portland was doing.
Which
mainly
they did.
Trying to pay attention to where Zach Edey went. I was a little curious on what the Bulls were going to do because they were picking 11th, I believe, at that time.
Right.
And so, your thoughts on the draft so far? I know with the Blazers, they draft Donovan Clingan.
They did, yeah. And before the night, they traded Malcolm Brogdon finally, weirdly. Plus, I think it was like, oh God, what was it? It was like Malcolm Brogdon plus 2 picks. Yeah, it was like the 14th pick and a 29 unprotected. Wait, what did they even get for that? Why am I blanking? They traded all this stuff for something. Who did they trade to? So it was a great night for the Blazers, clearly.
Great night, yeah.
Was that right? The Wizards.
They got Denny Avadia from the Wizards.
Yeah, I call him Denny.
Denny, yeah, Denny.
Okay, yeah, no, nice. So yeah, he is.
That was a nice speech. I remember you talking about that, being like, I actually do like that guy. He's a younger player from Washington.
Yeah, he's the wizard we asked for, I guess. But he is a wizard, so it's a limited people there. So I like it. It seems like a lot. Like I don't. This isn't a one for one. This isn't a giddy for DeRozan or Caruso situation. Like you have to give 2 extra picks, and then this is something I don't think we actually talked about. DeJounte Murray got traded to the. Wow, I'm blanking on everything now. The Pelicans, which I love. I love that for him and for them. It was about the same price as this Malcolm Brogdon Denny trade. It was like 2 picks and a role player. So I was like, I don't know, sometimes I wonder about the prices on this stuff. I do like the player the Blazers got. I don't understand why we couldn't have sold Malcolm Brogdon to a contender at the deadline for a higher price than in the offseason to the Wizards. Like, they need him. So I don't. That aspect of it seems a little bit weird, but he's a good player. It's a weak draft. Sure, okay. The 2029 unprotected pick I don't like because not super convinced they're not going to still be bad at that point. But, Denny's a good player. So then, yes, at 14, no, at 14 is when they traded. 7, boy, I'm just trying to remember all this draft stuff. I'm not doing so well. They take Donovan Clingan, the UConn center. Immediately, alarm bells go off. Is what's going on with DA now? I mean, he was always pretty expendable on this roster. He was just a piece back that maybe you could rebuild his trade value and trade him again. Now, he doesn't. That certainly hasn't happened. His value is not really that high right now, so it doesn't really make sense to go crazy and trade him this year. Like, they'll probably play together. The rookie will be the backup, and then maybe next year they'll actually start thinking about this. As far as the rest of the draft, I mean, can you remember who went number 1? I can't. I don't. It was a crazy name, to be fair.
Ricochet, the French guy.
Points for you. Yeah, there's a lot of French guys. Yeah, I mean this.
Who was your guy that got drafted and then immediately traded? Because he got traded for what is essentially a couple of teenagers right now because they were 2030 and 2031 draft picks.
This is a very casual draft. Certainly, this draft is tough. But one of the only guys I had heard about pre-draft was great. Now you're going to make me think of his name now.
Was it the Kentucky guy? Wasn't he Kentucky?
It was like Bellerman or something. Bellingham, I think maybe was his name. And apparently he's just a prolific scorer. The thing that I heard on the podcast was like, yeah, he might drop 40 this year.
Yeah.
And he's a guard. So I just wanted – the Spurs had 2 top 7 picks or something.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted them to get guys who could get Wemby the ball. And they took Tassel, who from what I've heard is like maybe could be the best player in the draft. I don't know much.
Yeah, solid pick it sounded like.
So cool, I'm into that. And then they took this Bellingham guy that I knew. I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is great. Wemby, this another prolific guard scorer. This is great. And then I barely turned around, and I guess they traded him to somebody, which just kills me because I just don't get it. I don't like it. And then honestly, the other thing we didn't talk about, they signed Chris Paul, and I'm just like, okay, you got a guy.
That's the guy to get it. Wemby the ball.
He can throw him in an outlet pass. He can throw him in a lob pass. He can throw him any kind of pass. They're not going to grow together. Like, this is a once. So in that respect, I would prefer you, like it, sure, yeah. You can still keep this Bellingham guy, bring in Chris Paul. Have a mentor these 2 young guys, be there for a year, throw some lobs, and then he's gone. And then Wemby has some people to grow with. So that element of it I found quite annoying, even though I didn't really know much about it. The one guy I signed into went to a team I liked, and then immediately traded him, so that was fine to me. Nothing really else we can say, I guess, right now. I feel like the Celtics took a guy, Baylor Sherman, who's just like a knockdown shooter, apparently. He's like...
Yeah, the guy from Creighton, who he basically single-handedly beat UConn during the regular season because of the way he shot in that game.
Oh, yeah. He's gonna... That's dope. Okay, I'm into that. Because the Celtics basically took like 2... The Celtics 2... Oh, that's added. It's added weirdness for a defender.
Different rotation. The defense will never see it.
Left-footed putter. Like, Belichick would always bring in left-footed putters because the spin was different. They would throw off the receivers. I love shit like that. And any little edge you can get. But they took like two fourth or fifth year starters. So they took guys who just could start now because they took uh, somebody from Gonzaga. I'm sure you know.
Is it Watson?
I think so. There's a big guy.
Anton Watson.
Yeah, it was like 14-6 or something. They took him the pick before the Lakers at 55. So they took the All WCC 14-5 center, and then right after that, the Lakers took Bronny James, who averaged 4 points. So I was like, oh, well, I guess we made a good pick. That was good.
Yeah, you and I agree on the whole Bronny James thing. I think he would have benefited more by staying another year because I think. Well, yeah, he didn't even get a full year because he was recovering from that heart issue that he had. Because I believe it was a cardiac arrest that he went into. But like he didn't get a full season, full working out because he was dealing with that, and so you're getting the 4.5 points and 1.2 rebounds, whatever his stats were. And I guess you could say that you do it in this draft because he didn't have the best year, and he's going to be a second round pick, and the Lakers, and LeBron's like, we could just pick him up, but if he goes off next year, he'll be a first round pick, and you can't guarantee the Lakers are going to be there. It's like this is all like somewhat conspiracy theory thinking because it's LeBron, but he should have stayed another year. I think it would only help his development, especially he's going to the Big Ten too, which is going to be a rougher conference to play in. Had he stayed at USC. Not that there's anything against Pac-12. It's just I think the Midwest Big Ten basketball is a more bruising, more physical, and I think that can kind of set you up better for the next level. And
you want to be able to get your feet under you and have success at the college level, so then you can go to the NBA and kind of start that process over again. To just skip that entirely and now have to get up to median level in the NBA is an insane task to ask. So he is going to end up playing G League games. Like that's the only way you can do it because they're not 82 game regular season. Then they're not practicing. There's no time for him to figure it out. Yeah. These young guys just fall by the wayside, and the vets start playing. So he'll probably just have to end up learning a lot of that in the G League, which is just weird. The whole thing is just completely orchestrated by LeBron because he wants the story. Which cool story. It is. Boy, you're really fucking your kid up though. I feel like. It's not helping his career at all.
Right.
It's really not helping. So I feel bad for him. This whole circus that he's now in the fishbowl with LeBron. I mean, he's going to have some of the biggest eyes on him because he's LeBron's son. So, it's kind of it's tough for him because if he had just been a regular player and been able to go back and then come in next year and kind of do stuff, sure. But I mean, the whole drama of it too, of him, his agent calling everybody and saying, do not pick him. He'll go to Australia. He's only playing for one team. If we wanted the Lakers to take him at 17, we would tell him and they would. That's the side of shit that I don't like at all.
Isn't that collusion's probably not the right word, but
it's the right word.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So it's like you're colluding to basically make sure that he goes to your team.
Yeah.
Didn't the NBA step in at some point? I'm not saying he should have gone earlier by any means, but just what if a team did want to take a flyer on him? It's
I think you'd have to, if they wanted to actually start looking at that, they'd have to have a whole investigation into clutch in general because that whole thing is just run by LeBron's business partner. It's very interesting how those guys end up on the Lakers more often than not or asking for trades to go to the Lakers. Yeah. So there's it may be too late in that regard to even begin. But yeah, more nepotism in the NBA. Let's do it. Let's
more nepotism in the world in general. Right?
We're not going to talk about it this time. Because Woj had some weird quote where he was like, I don't want to hear people talk about nepotism. It happens all the time. What? Wait, we can't talk about this one, but it does happen all the time. Okay.
I think people who are talking about it are annoyed at the fact that it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't, that quote missed the point entirely, it felt like to me, but yeah. Manny, good luck to you, man. I'll probably see you playing against the Remix next year.
I will.
Yeah, good luck. It seems like a tough road for him to follow. This is basically probably going to be the Bronny draft, it feels like, unless somebody pops off entirely, because it's the French guy draft, because there was 6 of the
top 6.
Over something, 3 in the top 6. Yeah, so a lot of foreign players, a lot of shots, but we'll see. You can never tell with these drafts, but certainly lived up to the hype or the non-hype, I should say, of what this draft was looking like.
And then I'll just say for us personally, just a little side note: T-Rob signed a summer league deal with the Wizards, so he'll be playing for the Wizards at the summer league in Vegas.
Cool, awesome, good for him. It's the Wizards.
Get a good opportunity. I know he signed his pro deal down in Sydney with the Kings and the NBL, but he's getting this opportunity, so he's going to go to Vegas and play a little basketball.
There's a lot of opportunity on that team too, so he could do it.
Yeah, and we kept calling him the Larry Bird of the WCC, so you never know.
Yeah, Mini Luca, I think a couple times came up.
That was a Steve Lavin quote too. I didn't just make that up out of thin air. So that came from a coach. I wasn't just dubbing him that.
Sure. He's got the vibe. We've called him similar to Luca a couple times, I think, as well.
Definitely. The way he plays and his style, yeah, absolutely.
Slowed down, kind of court vision, basketball IQ stuff.
The last thing I'll say about the draft, though, my guy Zach Edey, since I mentioned it, went to the Memphis Grizzlies, which I think actually is not a bad landing spot for him. I think they're looking for another big because they had Jackson down there as their center, and I think he's more of a power forward than necessarily a center. And so you can slot him over. You get a strong defender in Edey. I don't think he's going to get quite the block numbers that he had, just because the NBA is a little bit of a different beast, and there's a defensive 3 seconds too. So like in college, he was able to sit in the paint, where in the NBA you're not going to be able to do that. So
it's like leading the league in blocks most years, honestly.
What was that?
Jaren Jackson Jr. is usually like top 3 blocking in the league. So
you got 2 quality shot blockers then near the rim.
That could turn into a terrifying situation if they are able to actually play together consistently. Does Edey have much of a shot?
Edey can shoot from the elbow. He's really good with his back to the basket. So like down on the block, at the elbow, he makes his free throw shots. He says he has the ability to shoot threes, but at Purdue they never asked him to because they didn't need him to. He made and shot 1 3 in his career at Purdue, and he made it this past season. So like,
I'm pretty sure Jaren Jackson Jr. has a little bit of range in that degree. So as long as you only have one non-shooting big, you can kind of survive.
Yeah, and like you're looking for him to get rebounds too. So like him and Jackson going after rebounds, it's going to be so hard for opposing teams to move 7'4" than the athleticism of Jackson, who's up there. I believe he's like 6'10" or close to it. So it's just like, whew, a couple of big boys down low. It'll be hard to contain if you're a defense or a opposition, I should say.
Yeah, and I mean the team's kind of been forgotten because of all the Josh stuff and him not being healthy as well. So him coming back this next year and those guys setting screens for him, they could reclaim their former glory rather quick. I mean, they traded for Marcus Smart. They still have Desmond Bain. Like they were a coming up team a couple of years ago, and then they've kind of just been on hiatus for like 2 years. So
yeah, I think that all stems from what you just said, kind of from that Josh stuff. Is where that roadblock sort of came up, or that speed bump for them right now on their trajectory up.
Yeah, but if they regain the form they had like a couple of years ago, they could kind of enter that next little area of teams. I feel like right below the Thunder, maybe the Timberwolves and Nuggets or something. But yeah, we'll see where this draft ends up. It certainly wasn't a star-studded event at the top, but at least we got some stars in the second round going to some major star-laden teams. So that'll be an exciting 12 seed.
Yeah, just about.
I went in on the Lakers there. What you gonna do? 17 banners, 17 big asterisks.
Yeah, because 17 didn't really count in the bubble. Yeah.
Well, they all those Minnesota titles, it's weird they count.
We we probably won't spend too much time on it, but there was another set of finals that was going on during the NBA finals. It went a little bit longer though.
Yeah, it did.
A little bit longer because the Florida Panthers went up 3-0. Everybody thought, all right, this is probably a sweep, maybe 5. And credit the Edmonton Oilers. They were gutting it out, and they forced a Game 7. Unfortunately for them, it was back in Florida. I think had it been in Edmonton, it probably goes the Oilers' way. But the Panthers, despite giving up so many goals in those final 3 games in 4, 5, and 6 leading up to Game 7, they rallied, only giving up one goal. Bobrovsky went back to where he was in those first couple of games. Sam Reinhart had the game-winning goal in the second period, and then
Yeah.
man, that entire third period was incredibly stressful because I felt like the
Yeah.
Oilers were just in the Panthers zone nonstop, and the Panthers couldn't do anything to clear the puck out.
Yeah, I thought they had so many chances and it was all mucked up right in front of the goal and it just never quite bounced their way. I mean, yeah, and Connor McDavid was out there trying to do what he could, but it just
and he played extended time too because he played more than half the third period, which if you know anything about hockey, that's almost unheard of for the most part. Like that's a lot of time out on the ice, and you could tell when they were trying to make that final push after pulling the goalie in the final 40 seconds, they just had nothing. They could barely get up the ice, and they looked sluggish and tired, and then they get trapped in the corner. And I've watched too many Cup games where it's like once the puck goes in the corner, it becomes a pile. They're just wasting time for the final 10, 15 seconds. You're not going to get a good look out of it. And
it's not happening. Just buried into the corner.
Yeah.
They couldn't get it out.
And I mean, one of the coolest things in sports, I made Aaron watch it, my wife, about the passing of the Stanley Cup and you know how it all starts. Starts with the captain, and then usually it goes to like the oldest guy who hasn't won the Stanley Cup, and so on forth down the line. And each guy gets their chance to go around. And I didn't think it was covered very well by ESPN. They kind of missed the first cup raising, which is the biggest moment. Yeah, like when the player finally does, like the player went right out of frame just as he was about to lift it, and they didn't cut to a different frame shot to catch it, or a different shot. I don't know why it's a frame shot. Different shot to catch it, and just butchered it. I felt like, in a way, it didn't like take too much away from the moment for me. Like I know what's going on and everything. I just think it's a cool moment. That and the handshake line at the very end, where both teams just right after the game shake hands and. You know, it's more of an honor thing. You know, you guys just fought hard. You made deeper than anybody else this season, and I think you see a lot of pain, a lot of admiration, though, and a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Respect, just all the way around for everybody making it that far. Because most guys are playing with injuries that I think any normal person would have been on their butt for the last 3, 4, 5 weeks.
Yeah. The hockey players they kind of take it to another level with that kind of stuff, especially in the playoffs. I do wish there was more of a moment like that in the NBA. Like even when the Celtics won, it was like they all get up on stage and they're just doing like interviews, and the interviews are like it's like, are we supposed to? So it's like they announce it and the owner holds it up, and then it's like, and then it just kind of sits there and they interview different people, and it's like, am I supposed to lift it or not lift it?
It's funny because once the first couple of players got it going with the Stanley Cup, they went over to talk to the head coach for the Panthers, and so they put the mic in front of his face, and she finishes the question, and he's about to get one word in, and he sees the Stanley Cup come into frame. He goes, hold on, I'm going to answer that in a second. And she just stepped away, didn't even try to conduct the interview anymore, and let him lift the cup and have his moment and kiss it and do its all thing. It's like, yeah, that's not happening in the NBA. In the NBA, there are mics in your face. You're answering this question while you're just like holding it on the side, basically waiting to celebrate. I feel like
everyone's like on stage, and it's like, okay, so then they interview the coach. They interview like the two best players, like Tatum and Brown. And then they just like randomly calling out role players and having them walk forward and ask him 2 or 3 questions. It's like it's just not well designed as a thing. Like even they should all get there and like hold it up together and take turns doing that, and then maybe you do some interviews. But I don't know. I had plenty of problems with ESPN's coverage of the finals, just as I'm sure you did with the Stanley Cup. It sounds like so. Yeah, they didn't exactly nail it in all respects there, but that moment is super cool in hockey. I wish there was more of a moment like that in basketball, where they get to go around the court and actually have their individual moments, which. It weirdly doesn't feel like there is in that. I mean, I've watched esports competitions where they do it way better, so it's strange to me that NBA teams have not figured out how to properly do this. But they celebrated for the next 4 weeks. They're still celebrating now, so I think they're doing all right.
I mean, and then the other thing about the Stanley Cup, like each player gets it for a day, brings it around to its hometown, or brings it to like some charity event. It like. They get to do whatever they want with the cup for a full day. So, like, I've seen people take it out of their boat. They're eating food out of it. They're doing God knows what else with it. And it's just like it's interesting tradition with the championship trophy that I also don't feel like is in any other sport.
Well, it's the same cup, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same cup, but what happens is they like those bottom plates, they rotate them out once there's too many. So like, whatever team won the Stanley Cup like 25 years ago, they'll take that plate off and replace it with the team that just won it this year, and it's just like that sort of rotation. I made up the yearly number, so don't quote me on that. But that is how it goes, though, because it's not going to get any more bigger that way.
Okay, I would say like, at some point to this, they just have to keep making the
It's just like a 30-foot trophy.
Taller. Yeah. Okay, so they like take sections off every once in a while and put it in the Hall of Fame or whatever.
Correct.
Add the more current version. That is super cool. Yeah, because it's like, NFL and NBA, it's like, here's the replica trophy. You get it forever. Put it in your trophy case.
Yep.
Even if you take it to batting practice and dent it when you try to bunt. Like the legend Rob Gronkowski.
Like Gronk, yeah.
That's just there forever now. But it's not like, hey, here you go. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won it all. There's a dent in the front of the trophy from Gronk last year. Like, yeah, it's surprising that the Stanley Cup, I mean, even is, like you said, if everyone gets a day and goes to do whatever they want with it, it's crazy to me that it's still in some condition at all.
They have a handler of the cup that's always there with the Stanley Cup. So
wow.
I'm sure he's like, what was that?
What a job. I mean, it's just like your year-round gig, I guess. Keeping an eye on the thing.
Your summers are great because you're traveling all over. So,
yeah,
I would say it's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, like this cup is going to, northern BC all the way to, like Slovakia. Like, because you never know where that player came from on that team, but you damn sure that it's going to that player's hometown and they're spending a day with it. And yeah, no, it's a cool experience for them all. And so congrats to the Panthers.
Unfortunately, another year where it's not going to go to Canada.
Yeah, 31 years now in a row that Canada has failed to win the Stanley Cup back.
Not in our lifetime.
I will say it's a bit skewed. There's like only a third of the teams are in Canada, so
yeah, but they're supposed to be better at it. I don't know.
Historically, their players are better. They just happen to be on the American teams.
They got to fix that. That's the first thing they got to fix.
Like,
that's a problem.
If you're a Canadian team, you have to have at least 90% Canadian rostered players.
Yeah. And Connor McDavid did win like the big award.
Yeah, he won the Conn Smythe, which was the MVP of the entire playoffs. That's the other thing about hockey is it's cumulative of what you did in the entire playoffs compared to the NBA Finals or the Super Bowl MVP or anything like that. So that's another thing where I think hockey does it better than pretty much any other sport.
Yeah, I think there should absolutely be a playoff MVP for football and basketball. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have guys that have like amazing weeks, 1 and 2 in the playoffs in football, and like, I don't want to say mediocre, but they have like what they would consider average, but you still put up these gaudy numbers throughout the entire playoffs. You helped your team. It's like, nope, like you didn't have your best day in the Super Bowl, so this other guy's getting it.
Yeah, it's just so selective too. It's like who had a good series, who missed a couple. Like Andre Iguodala wins over Steph because Steph didn't really play that well, and he played defense on LeBron. Mm-hmm. So it would just be nice to have even like an all tournament team for the playoffs. I think would be a genius idea too. It seems like a no brainer. Just like here's our best 5.
Easy selling point for the NBA. Like you want more money? Here you go.
Yeah. So and that's when it's just weird to me because it's like we have all the awards for the regular season, which half the guys don't care about, and then we have like not really that many for the point where the basketball actually becomes real and people actually start playing on hard. So, and even like the East and West Conference Finals MVP is like kind of a weird nothing thing to me. Like,
right.
You can just get rid of that and give me a playoffs MVP. That's fine. I don't really Finals MVP you can keep, but let's also have a playoffs MVP. I think it would be more often than not those wouldn't line up, but every once in a while they wouldn't, and I think it'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, that's NBA and NHL all wrapped up for the most part.
Yeah, I won't lie. I can't speak much on the NHL draft. Most of those guys are either going to college next year and they're not going to like be playing at the NHL level. So like, except they're, what'd you say?
I just said, oh, really? Yeah, there's so
you
many
get a
like
lot of guys that like commit to
leagues in
school
hockey.
playing in 25, 26, and they're 17, 18 years old, and they're going to go play like another year at junior to work on some stuff. You have your rights for like 3 years with that team
Right.
to sign a contract, and then once you sign your contract, and then it keeps going.
Okay.
But
Well, I think the most
Celebrini, who was picked number one, he'll definitely be playing this year. He's really good. Like Bedard was 1-1 last year for the Blackhawks. He was a no brainer,
yeah,
going to be playing right away, and that's how this player's thought of for the Sharks. Not quite as good as Bedard, but still quite talented, and seems like a lock to make game one roster. So
gotcha.
that's
Well, I
my
think
breakdown of the NHL draft for you. There you go.
okay, well, my breakdown is just about the building that it's in because I think that was the most interesting thing. Yeah, it's in the sphere. I honestly, I thought it was too much. It looked really weird, but I'm sure it was a cool experience to be in, and it has a lot of potential. I just think it.
It's strange. They kept doing like the draft board, but because it's
Yeah, it's like all the fucking.
all the way up and like.
Yeah, it feels like I'm sitting in like an observatory or something, and I don't know. It seemed a little extra to me. There was just a lot going on all the time, but it's a very cool building that I'm sure it can be used a lot of cool different ways. But that one didn't exactly vibe with me. But it makes sense why you'd have events like that there. I'm sure they'll do the NHL or the NBA draft there at some point. Wouldn't be shocked at all. But pretty cool.
I'm shocked that they haven't already announced that for the NFL. So.
Yeah, I mean they did it. They did the Vegas draft like a year or two ago, right? Where they were like on the Bellagio.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you gotta wait a couple years for it to go back, but whatever.
Not too much.
Well, that brings us to Nerd Corner. I don't know if well, for your Nerd Corner, I know you want to talk about one thing. I was going to talk about more about what I watched this past week, and I briefly mentioned it to you. So what did you watch? I guess you can call this, but I watched a delightful movie from 1995. It was called and it was. What'd you say?
What was it called?
It's called To Wong Fu. Thanks for Everything, Julia or Julie Newmar. It's a very long title, but basically in the movie, what it is that's how an autograph is signed in one of the diners that they're in. And so, like, it's like somebody signed that picture, and that's what they see in the diner, and that ends up being the name of the movie. So that's why it's said like that. But basically, it's Wesley Snipes, John Leguizamo, and Patrick Swayze in drag. Yeah, so they win this drag competition in New York City, and so they're going to this national competition in L.A., and John Leguizamo's character was upset because she didn't win, where Wesley Snipes and Patrick Swayze, they tied for the win, so they were both going. And so they take John Leguizamo under their wing. It was like, oh, don't worry, like we'll make a woman out of you at this point. And so they sold their plane tickets, bought a car, and they were doing a cross-country trip. And basically what happens in the movie is their car breaks down in this very traditional area. And Chris Penn is a sheriff who is on the look for him because he did what unfortunately some terrible people do and pulled them over, then tried to like sexually harass them, and realized that Patrick Swayze was a male, and Swayze pushed him. And they said that he was dead. I didn't totally make total sense of that. Somebody said they checked the pulse and he was dead, but all he did was get shoved. Like, there's no way he was dead. There are little plot holes here that I didn't totally agree with, but I was enjoying the movie. I'd never seen it before. But anyway, yeah, they're just like, we gotta get out of here. So they hop back into their car. They're like, we gotta go. We can't be here anymore. Because they thought they murdered an officer, but they ended up leaving a shoe behind. And so when he regains consciousness, which seems like hours later, by the way, like another officer comes by and like shakes him awake, and he's like, "Oh, what?" It's like, dude, you got pushed over, and like that was it. It didn't even look like he hit his head. Yeah. Anyways, he's like trying to find them now because he has the shoe, and their car breaks down in this traditional town, and basically Patrick Swayze's character is meant to be helpful, but is somewhat a little nosy on some stuff, but then sort of wins the town over all three of them just by being them and nice, and people didn't really care that they were men dressing as women and stuff like that. And eventually, Chris Penn's character comes into town. It's like, I'm not leaving until I find these weirdos, and like that's literally what he was saying. Like it was such a '90s like line of sentencing, like homophobic and everything else. And it like everybody steps out in town and stands up for him, and eventually they come out and like, we don't care that you're drag and all this other stuff. And so Chris Penn f's off, and yeah, it was just a fun little lighthearted movie. I had a lot of laughs in it just because it was funny seeing Patrick Swayze and Wesley Snipes trying to do drag, and like I'll give the makeup team credit. Like they really didn't look half bad. Like credit to them. It was just amusing to see them overall though in that movie. I was like, Wesley Snipes. Like I never thought that he would do something like this, but hey, like I thought all three of them did a great job in that movie, portraying those characters. And yeah, like I said, delightful, fun. Was it the best movie ever? No. Like there was one part in the movie where John Leguizamo challenges Patrick Swayze and it's like, you couldn't make it as a man, and that's why you're a woman. And Patrick Swayze gets up. Yeah, it was a dagger of a line. And Swayze gets up, and then his wig gets like ripped off, and it felt like there was going to be some, like, how dare you say that to me? Like this very tonal change, because right before that, she's talking about how there's some domestic violence going on in the house that they're in with the people that are helping them stay there. And she's trying to step in and break it up. And that's when Leguizamo says that line, and then the wig comes off. And so you're expecting, like, how dare you say that to me? Like, yada, yada. None of that. Next thing you see is just Patrick Swayze kicking in the door and then saving this woman from domestic abuse. And I was just like, that was a weird cut. I get what they were doing, and just, like, going right there. I'm wondering if that was something where, like, hey, maybe that scene didn't work in the movie, and they sort of cut
that. It might have been a little cut, yeah.
Because that's how it felt like. They left something empty there. It seemed like a very perfect time for a speech of, like, I'm who I am because of this or whatever, and it just didn't happen that way. So that would be, like, my only real critique, I guess. Because
the 90 censors came in and were like, whoa, what is this about? I don't know if we're ready 100%. For this.
I guarantee you that's exactly what it was. Like,
yeah.
How dare you have this, like, children are going to see this movie. All that stuff.
Yeah.
But, it was a fun movie. I never heard of it. Just saw the cast, and like, I was like, okay, like, it was a good movie. It was a solid 90s movie. Thought about adding it to the collection. I actually saw it at Buymark, but I wasn't going to pay $8.99 for it. I would have paid like $3.99 or something, or $2.99, but I'm not going to pay $9 for that.
Attainable.
For a movie that is almost 30 years old now.
Yeah, that is right in the prime of Swayze and Snipes both, like those 90s runs for them. It's pretty
I want to say Roadhouse was like right before that, or a couple years before that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure. That's like Demolition Man era for Wesley Snipes, maybe even. God, I love that movie.
So yeah, that was my what did I watch lately? A little bit of nerd corner into my movie fandom, movie watching, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. What I've been watching recently, I got the Disney Plus subscription again to kind of blast through a bunch of the stuff that's on there that I've been wanting to watch. I'm not talking about this today, but I have been watching that old, the X-Men cartoon. They came out with the 97 one.
Yeah, X-Men 97, yeah.
I was going to watch that, but then I was like, well, they're all on here. So I'm just watching them, the original ones now. I've watched like a season and a half or something of the 4, so I'll come back and talk about that probably at some point, but it has been quite enjoyable. I started watching some Doctor Who. Are you familiar with the Doctor?
I'm familiar with the Doctor. Yeah, I know some things.
Doctor? What
Doctor Who? Doctor Who? I know what a TARDIS is.
Is there a specific actor that you think of when you think of the Doctor? Have you seen any of it, or what?
I've never sat down and really watched episodes. Like I mainly watched. I came in and my brother was watching it, and so I'm familiar with it in that sense.
Sure.
I know the entity of it. I know that they usually change the actor every 3 or 4 years.
They do. Oh, I got that one. Yeah, it's like they're They find James Bond. They just can. They do it. They can change it out every once in a while when
Like
that
it could be
actor
a
gets.
woman, it could be a man, it could be black person, like it doesn't matter. Like there's no like structure of like this character has to be this, and so it's like, right? Am I wrong or?
No, you're right. And yet fans will still get mad. This is stupid, racist or sexist ones, but
Yeah, of course.
largely so far it's only been men and women, if you can believe it. I think it might change at some point, but yeah, I don't want to get. But yeah, it's just
You
a
don't
good.
want to put yourself in a corner right there.
Yeah, we survived the Patrick Swayze drag talk already. I don't want to strip up on this one, so yeah, all that seems like I already have. But anyways, it's a long series for them. They get to do wacky fun adventures. I mean, Rick and Morty is like kind of half this, half Back to the Future, basically.
Yeah.
They literally like kind of use a parody theme, and it's very much Doctor Who. So I was curious to go back and watch it after watching Rick and Morty, and it still holds up. It's very different. But anyways, yeah, there's this is kind of a reboot series because obviously this is a show that was on in the 30s and 40s and 50s and shit. Like there are lost episodes that they can't find because it's just so old.
Yeah.
It's black and white or whatever. So they did a reboot series like mid 2000s. The first guy, God, I forget his name. It's like Christopher Eccleston or something. He was on for one season. It was pretty good. Then after that, David Tennant came in. He did 3 seasons, and for a long time has been, at the time, probably still is, my favorite Doctor. He's great. After him, Matt Smith came in, who's famous for Morbius and other things. He was in that the Crown and stuff. Yeah. So he came in. He was quite good. Him and Amy Pond, blah blah blah. And Peter Capaldi came in. I actually bailed at that point because I was like, "Who's this old guy? I don't want this." And then I recently came back this like last summer and watched it because I watched a couple other Peter Capaldi things and realized that I liked him. And he's great. He's actually like fantastic.
Were you an ageist? Did you judge him on his age?
Yeah. I mean, these things in college, and I was like, cool, David Tennant. Cool, Matt Smith. And I was like, Grandpa?
Great.
I don't want to watch Grandpa's Adventures. In hindsight, he's like maybe the most energetic. He's a very fun doctor. I like him a lot. He might be like my second favorite doctor now. I don't know. And then they went to Jodie Whittaker. From what I've heard, I like Jodie Whittaker. She was great in Broadchurch, which also had David Tennant, crazy enough, and Olivia Colman. That's a great show. It's not this show. This is a different show. Yeah, so they went to Jodie Whittaker. From everything I've heard, it was very poorly written for her, which I feel bad about. So I skipped all of them. Basically, all these people have had like 3 seasons to kind of do their thing, and then they switch out. So at the end of Jodie Whittaker's season, they call it a rejuvenation, or something like that. Regeneration, where they change faces, they become a new person. Because it's the same person, but not he, I guess. They are an alien, so I don't know. They regenerate and get a new face every once in a while.
Who's an alien?
They are they're from Gallifrey. They're a 2-hearted alien who just happens to have an affinity for Earth because their home planet was kind of lost to them, is basically the idea. But yeah, basically whenever they get to a point where a normal human would die, they basically regenerate into a new person. So at the end of Jodie Whittaker's run, they regenerate. God damn it. And it's David Tennant's face. So you're immediately like, what? They don't repeat. What's going on? Why is he back? What is this? And so that's kind of where I started picking up. This was all a preamble. So I told you we weren't going to do this under an hour. This is all preamble to a series of specials that they had. Basically 4 specials that they came out with that ended on a Christmas special, which is a huge, huge thing for Doctor Who. Basically, I think all the new Doctors start with like a Christmas special, and that's like where they're introduced. And then they go on and have adventures on like a regular season or whatever. So anyways, the first special is like David Tennant's back. When he goes back and meets up with one of his former companions, because that's the big thing is there's a doctor, and then they find some random person basically, and eventually they become their companion, and then they kind of travel around with them because they're like immortal, so they kind of want somebody to basically like see it through their eyes sometimes. I
Okay.
don't know, whatever the reasoning is. The real reasoning is you need another character so that they can talk out loud. But you might know the person who this is. It's what was her name? Donna in the Office too. She was the British lady in the Office who like took Andy's job near the end, or like sat in his chair.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time seeing her face, but I know like the character you're talking about.
He was the main character in that show. Hated her. Or at least I did.
In The Office? You're talking about in The Office?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When she like, sits in Andy's chair and is like, "Yeah, I'm not fired. You're fired," or something. I was just like, "Get!" Oh my god. But anyways, she was a former Doctor Who companion, so she's in these specials. She's like kind of his companion in these, and they basically did 4 specials. The first 2 were two of them having adventures. The third one, they kind of come back to Earth and have another adventure. Actually, Neil Patrick Harris is like the villain in that. And at the end of the third one, the new Doctor arrives. They actually do a weird thing they've never done. They do a regeneration where it's like they pull the new Doctor out of David Tennant and they become 2 people, and then he just
That's
leaves David Tennant on Earth to hang out with his friends and like to have a vacation, basically, like fucking chill for once in your life, and I'll continue on. So that element's a little weird. I don't totally get that because that's never happened. I don't. The timeline's weird. I don't get it. But blah blah. Basically, it just gives you a way to have one little last adventure with David Tennant and then set up the new guy. And the new guy, I think you said you saw him in Sex Education.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Makudi?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I thought that's Sex Education. It's a show on Netflix. I got into it because I like Gillian Anderson from The X-Files, and she's the mom in that show. But she's a sex therapist, and so her son ends up like going to high school and running his own sex therapy thing at high school, and his
Oh,
best friend is the new doctor.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I've got to see him act in that, and I want to say I saw him in something else too. I can't remember what the movie or the show was, but I liked what he did. Like, I think he's charismatic. I think he's fun. I'm sure there's probably some people who are not happy with the choice, but I think like his energy that he gives off, at least from what I saw from Sex Education and from the clips that I've seen in trailers for Doctor Who, like
Yeah.
seems like he'd be a good fit. So like I'm gonna rely on your instinct because Doctor Who's not really my thing, but let me know how that goes with him because I like I said I think it's different from the other Doctors that I have seen. Again, I don't watch the show. I'm literally just seeing it from like clips and things. So like I I like his acting. I don't have anything like bad to say about the decision because I think he's good at what he does, and I think he'd be a fun doctor. So yeah, I'm interested to hear what you have to say when you watch his episodes.
He's an incredibly fun doctor. He's
See,
a
all
great
right,
fit.
I didn't even look at that. I didn't even
He's
need to watch
awesome.
it. I already knew it.
He's actually like he could probably be my favorite doctor by the end of his run. He might already start to think about that. He's so fucking good. Uh, he's in the third special a little bit with David Tennant, which is cool because you don't really actually get to see many of these doctors interacting with each other because they pass it off. It's like James Bond's. There's been a couple of big specials where they kind of do some crossovers. Like there was a 50th year anniversary where David Tennant and Matt Smith like teamed up and blah blah blah. But for the most part, that's not a thing you get to see. So it was kind of cool to actually see the baton passing physically from him to him. And then his first episode he has is just a banger. It's awesome. Also, he fucking dresses incredibly. He looks so iconic in everything that he wears. It's like crazy. Like he just looks incredible in everything. But the first episode he's in is a great episode. It's about like coincidence goblins. That's the only way I can describe it. Stealing babies. Uh, and it's I don't know. It's great. I think it's called The Church on Ruby Road, and it's the 4th special. It's also technically like the first episode of his season, so it's kind of a twofer. Or they kind of just used it as the first of that season. Enough to say, think you could probably just jump into this episode with no information and enjoy
Very
it.
first
And
episode.
yeah, and actually be able to get into the rest of the season pretty well because it's just it cuts off all the other stuff. It's just here is the Doctor on his first adventure and basically finding. They all start with a Christmas special where he finds a new companion, and then from there it's like, oh, come go on adventures with me, blah blah blah. Let me take you here. Let me take you there. So yeah, that first episode is fantastic. It's a great introduction to the series, to him, to the characters. It makes me interested in his companion character as well. I forget her name, but she was fantastic in it as well. But it's kind of just it's. I was gonna say it's rejuvenated. Maybe it's regenerated my interest in Doctor Who. Wow! I see what I did that.
Whoa.
Yeah, okay,
You
hang
mentioned
on.
too many things there.
It's been awesome though. I went through a period. I was like, I can't even believe I used to watch Doctor Who. That show's so silly. It's all timey wimey. None of the rules make sense. But it was worth it. Great show. I think it's a worth it thing. I think I'd be curious if you could get into it without knowing all the other shit. Which
I mean, I like I said, I like the actor, so I when I find some time, like myself, it's about finding the time when I don't know Eric or when Aaron falls asleep and stuff. So it's like I can watch something that's more of my interest.
I like the fifth one he has is a good gauge. If you
How many episodes do they already have out?
I think they're one away from finishing their first season. There's like 8 out.
Oh, okay. See, perfect time to binge.
Pretty simple. There's a point in this. I'm actually not done yet. So I'm gonna. There's one last thing. I forgot. The fifth episode is good. I'm enjoying it, and it got to a point where I turned the volume all the way up, and there was a singing and a dance number with the trolls that was just next fucking level. It was so fucking funny and hilarious. I turned the volume all the way up, and then from that point on until the end of the episode, it was like just an awesome episode, and I was like over half of it. So I was very into it. I loved it a lot. I teared up a couple times, but I'm pretty prone to do that honestly with some of these things. So, but
No shame.
it was great. And if you get to the music number in the first episode, you will not stop after that. I guarantee it.
Okay,
so good.
I'll take your word for it. I feel like I'll have something to watch then after work on Friday after Thorns. So
there you go. Check out the Doctor.
Should be a good one. Anything else on this episode though, Ray?
Yeah, I got about 4 or 5 more things.
They're actually all Doctor Who related. Got a couple other nerd corner topics.
So each season of the Doctor, and then we're gonna get into Elden Ring lore, which I know you're excited about. So
yes.
You just got an hour or 2 to go, right? So we're ready to do it.
Yeah. We're not creeping up on 90 minutes. We want to keep you here for another 3 more hours.
We gotta talk about Melania and the Scarlet Rot. Come on.
Ah, yes, yeah, of course. Well, we know that people want to listen to that, so we'll hold up until the next episode for it. We'll keep them clamoring. We want them to come back, Of course. Ray, your team won their 18th banner. Congratulations. You're back on the winning route. I know it was a long few years between Patriots Super Bowl and Celtics title run for your fandom.
Quicker than 19, I'm open.
So I'm just looking to see more than one title for my teams. So
you got Jet Skinny. You can't be too mad. But you are.
That's it. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Sportslandia. For Ray Bradley, I'm Brian Slang. Thanks for tuning in on the Next Professional Athlete platform.